Welcome to episode 74 of the VR Game Rankings Daily Vlog series. It is Thursday, January 11th, and I gotta say, we don't have a ton of news stories today, even though this is the week of the Consumer Electronics Show, and we expected to have a lot of big news all week long. It is kind of tapered off. We've really had this HTC Vive Pro stuff that has come out. That has obviously been the big news of the week. But other than that, it's been kind of a trickle of little news stories here, little news stories there, and not a lot of major heat. But we do have a couple of news stories to get into. And then a little bit later in the show, I might have some actual game discussion. Yeah. And it's not going to be Fallout 4. I know I've said that all I can play is Fallout 4, but I've actually played a couple of different games recently that I've kind of gotten into, and I would like to talk about those on the back half of this show. But let's go ahead and start it off with the opening news story. And the big news of the day is Knuckles. Yeah, the big news is Knuckles supposedly is not going to be in the retail package for the HTC Vive Pro that is coming in the fourth quarter of 2018. Now, this is a story that comes to us from Road to VR. Apparently, an HTC Vive spokesperson has told Road to VR that Knuckles' release date and introduction is a Valve question, and that they have no plans at this current point in time to have Knuckles in the box. Instead, they plan on having new improved versions of the HTC Vive wands that we're very familiar with, but not actually Knuckles. So this is pretty huge news for everybody out there, because the thought process was, by myself and most other VR pundits out there, we all kind of assumed that Knuckles was going to be in the box. And part of the reason we assume this is because what other reason does HTC have to delay this full package? Why would they not have a full package? Now, I'm not going to try to beat a dead horse with this talk, but I really don't understand why they've decided not to have a full package with base stations, with controllers, with the link box, 3-in-1 cable, with all the different things that you need to start completely from scratch. There are brand new VR consumers out there. Well, they're brand new flat gamers that would like to be VR gamers at some point, and they would like to jump aboard, and they want to jump aboard with a complete package. They don't want to buy a headset a la carte and then buy individual controllers a la carte and a base station and a link box and power adapters and all the different things that you might need to buy to get this thing up and running. They want to buy one box and have the whole entire thing. So what reason does HTC have to delay this full package all the way to the fourth quarter if it wasn't for Knuckles? Now, if Knuckles was the reason, that does make sense. We understand this. HTC is in a relatively difficult position, actually, from the standpoint that they kind of have to kowtow to Valve and basically wait for Valve to give them the okay to do this, to give them the okay to do that. They're kind of waiting on Valve to be able to integrate the Knuckles into their system and all these kinds of things. And if Valve is not giving them any information in this regard about being able to include Knuckles into their own retail packaging, then HTC is kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So now they're going to redesign and hopefully slightly improve their HTC Vive wands, but they're moving forward with no plans to include Knuckles. So this is a really weird situation. There's a lot of different angles you could take a look at this. You kind of have to wonder, what is Valve thinking here? What is Valve's strategy? On the one hand, you could say, well, maybe Valve would like to sell these Knuckles controllers themselves. Maybe they want to have a period of time where they are the only option. If you want the Knuckles controllers, you have to go through Valve. However, if you think about that, doesn't make a ton of sense because Valve has said repeatedly they're not really a hardware company. They don't really want to get involved in hardware. They've talked about how they don't try to make profits off hardware. Like they're not looking at that as like a revenue stream or anything. They don't really have the manufacturing processes to like do this on a regular basis. I know they had the Steam controller and stuff like that, but this is not really their thing. So I don't know exactly what's going on here. I think this is simply a situation where Valve does not want to be pressured by any outside company. They're working on Knuckles. They're working on their 3 VR games. They're iterating on Knuckles. They're possibly making slight improvements to Knuckles. And they don't want to feel any outside pressure where they have to have Knuckles finalized by such and such a date because it has to go into one of their partners' retail packaging. So I think this is just one of these kind of weird situations where HTC, when they're walking around, it's almost like they're walking around on eggshells when it comes to Valve because they don't really know, what's going on here, but they're working with Valve. They appreciate Valve. Obviously, Valve has given HTC a huge shot in the arm with this whole entire VR thing, with the Lighthouse tracking and all of that. All of that was key in bringing this whole thing together. And HTC is, in a lot of ways, they're trying to reinvent themselves as this VR company, and they definitely have to thank Valve in a major way for that. So on the one hand, they have to be thankful for Valve. On the other hand, it must be very difficult for them to work with Valve when they don't really have a clear-cut idea about a lot of this. So they have to move on. They have to think in a different way, and now they're going to be redesigning their own HTC Vive wands, hopefully making them maybe a little bit smaller, maybe making them a little bit more ergonomic, maybe possibly adding a thumbstick to it somehow, or improving it in some other way, maybe additional buttons or additional possibilities there. So we don't know what's going to go on with that, but this seems to be like a story that is going to continue to percolate in the background until we get some final answers from this whole Knuckles thing. I remember I was talking to my good buddy Erwin X. This was a long time ago. We were talking about Knuckles, and there was all this Knuckles hype. This was back when Valve first sent off those boxes that had prototypes of the Knuckles to all these different developers, and different developers were showing off Knuckles. We remember the developer of the Gallery was showing off Knuckles, and we were wondering, hey, the Gallery 2 is coming in September. Maybe Knuckles will come out then. Well, obviously, none of that has happened. None of that has transpired. And I was telling Erwin X, I was saying, you know what? I think Valve maybe made a little bit of a mistake here by making this thing public, because it is a long ways away, and this just gets everybody jazzed up and excited about this Knuckles stuff, and then we gotta wait like a year and a half later to finally get it, and it's just unfortunate. It is the Valve time meme that, of course, we always know about. But yeah, so this is an interesting situation. I mean, I don't know what to go on here. The one concern I really do have, though, with all of this is new buyers. New buyers coming aboard would like to buy a whole entire package, and now they got to wait to the fourth quarter, and LG is nowhere to be found either. So it's kind of a weird little situation that we have going on here in the Steam VR world. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to story number 2. Story number 2 is there is a game called End Space. This is by Orange Bridge Studios. Now, End Space originally was a Gear VR game. Then it got ported to PlayStation VR last year, and the developer did say that this game would be coming to the PC VR platforms. Well, it's in the news today because there is an Oculus Store page for End Space, and it says that it will be releasing in January of 2018. Now, obviously, as I look at the calendar here, it is January 11th, so this game could be coming out at any possible time. Now, I have looked to see, is there a Steam VR page for End Space? I could not find one, but it's possible that a Steam VR page could show up at the very last minute. We've seen that happen a number of times as well. But InSpace is an interesting flight sim kind of game in the vein of Eve Valkyrie. It is very arcade-like. This is not like a hardcore sim, even though there will be HOTAS support coming to this game, and it does have some integrated stuff along those lines. But this is more of a single-player affair, and I played this game on PlayStation VR. I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. The one issue that I did have with this game back when I played it was you do have this announcer that comes in over your radio comms, and every time you go to a new sector or you have a new mission, he comes in and kind of tells you about your mission, what you need to do, what you need to watch out for, these sorts of things. The problem with it is I always felt that his volume was like ridiculously way too high. And I believe the developer has since now patched in some volume controls that can kind of alleviate that. But the other problem with this announcer was the recording of the voice was kind of garbled, and sometimes it would be hard to understand what the guy was saying. So if you just take that guy's volume and you turn it down, that's not going to help the clarity any. So I'm not sure what the deal is with that. That was really my only issue with that game. And it's a relatively minor issue, but it was a little nitpicking thing that did bother me a little bit. But the thing about InSpace is this is more of a single player focus, kind of going on missions. I don't believe there's any multiplayer whatsoever. At least the PSVR version that I played, as far as I remember, was 100% single player. So I don't believe there's any multiplayer action here. This is more of a single player space sim type game along the lines of Eve Valkyrie. But it is good that we're going to get another game in January. We definitely need some more heat to hit the PC VR market. So look for this on the Oculus Rift, hopefully in the coming weeks. Okay, and then the last regular news story I have, we go to the world of VR cameras. And this is something that I haven't covered very much. I'm not really that interested in this, but on a light news day, I thought I would go ahead and bring this up. So Lenovo has a new camera. It's the VR180 Mirage camera. Now, this is coming later this year. It's coming in the second quarter of 2018, and they will have a version that will retail for under $300. I believe it is the Wi-Fi only version that will retail under $300. So the Mirage camera is designed, it's one of the first cameras that's going to be working with Google's new VR180 format that they're kind of getting behind with YouTube and Google Photos. So what you're going to do is this is kind of integrated with YouTube and with Google Photos. You can capture images 180 degrees, stereoscopic images. So these are legit 3D images that you're going to be capturing, and you can upload these images to YouTube and to Google Photos. And if you have a Daydream, if you have Google Daydream, or if you have Cardboard, you can view it that way. And then the hope is that there could be some way to extract this footage from YouTube or Google Photos, and maybe even be able to view this on, say, an Oculus Rift or an HTC Vive, or possibly the Microsoft mixed reality headsets as well. So hopefully there will be some way to get this footage onto other things besides just the Daydream and Cardboard. But this camera does feature two super wide angle lenses, each with 13 megapixel sensors. And basically, that's pretty much it on this story. And what I kind of wanted, it does have 16 gigs of internal storage, and it can be expanded to 128 gigabytes of internal storage with a micro SD card. So you do have some additional storage space that you can add on there. But what I wanted to ask you guys really is, are you interested in having your own video that you can take, that you can view it in VR? Is this something you're interested in? Three-dimensional photos and videos using this 180 degree sphere, this VR 180 format that Google is backing. Are you interested in getting a camera like this and taking footage of stuff? It's something that I haven't really thought too much about. Now, one thing I've always thought with these cameras, like one thing that would be kind of cool with these cameras, but I was thinking more the 360 one, is that when you go to like a holiday like Christmas or whatever, your entire family gets together for Christmas, and there's a ton of people in the living room, and there's people sitting on this couch and that couch, and people sitting on this chair over there, and it's kind of a 360 degree affair. And if you had a 360 degree camera, you could place that in the middle, and it can kind of capture Christmas 2017, and you can look back on that, and you can stand in there in a VR perspective and kind of see what your Christmas 2017 was like. Now, obviously, this is going to the 180 degrees, so it's a little bit different. They're hoping for higher resolution by chopping this in half and focusing the resolution on the front-facing 180 degrees. But I'm kind of curious about what kind of use cases are we going to have for these kind of cameras. Now, of course, if you have a son or daughter that plays on, say, like a basketball team, or maybe they are a tennis player or a soccer player, you could possibly bring a camera like this to that type of sporting event and try to kind of capture the action that's taking place and maybe cover the entire basketball court or a good portion of the soccer field or a tennis court or whatever it happens to be, and kind of capture it in this 180 degree view, and then be able to view that later on various VR headsets. So there is some interesting things that could go on here. And then also in terms of the price, is it will be nice when we can get these prices down and they can be a little bit more of mass market items. But I was kind of curious, are you guys interested in capturing your own 180 degree footage, and what exactly would you be using it for? Although don't go into the other category that you might want to go into as far as that. We don't want to hear too much about that. But I mean, there are some different ideas that of course we could have with 180 degree cameras. But yeah, so anyway, just wanted to bring that up. That's, slow news day. What are you going to say? Okay, so we do have a little bit of time to get into some actual game coverage. And one thing I wanted to bring up, now I've said this before, that Fallout 4 VR has absolutely dominated my playtime. But one thing I did recently was I went into From Other Suns. Okay, so Gunfire Games was kind enough to give me a key for From Other Suns. This is a while back. And I played the game a little bit in the beginning, and I was mostly playing it single player style. I had it set up so that friends could join my game, knowing that in all likelihood, it would basically be me by myself. And I kind of wanted to play through the game early on in that fashion, kind of get a feel for the game, know what the hell I'm doing before I worry about going into the multiplayer. And I did that for a few days and played it here and there, but it didn't really capture me that much for whatever reason. Now, I've decided to go back into it, just decided, hey, I haven't really played From Other Suns that much. Let me go back into it. Now, I've played From Other Suns almost every night for like the last 3 nights. And I gotta say that I've really been getting into this game. There's just something really cool about it. And I think part of it is it goes to Black Mirror, season 4 of Black Mirror, a really good show that is on YouTube. I watched the very first episode of season 4, and the first episode of season 4, I'm not going to spoil it, so don't worry about that, but there's a lot of Star Trek that is in this first episode of season 4 of Black Mirror, and From Other Suns has a lot of Star Trek in it as well. It's almost like you're a member of Starfleet, and you're participating in this Star Trek-like adventure that's going on in From Other Suns. And after watching that Black Mirror episode, it made me want to play From Other Suns and actually play multiplayer and talk to other people and do all of that, which I was kind of avoiding that before. And so I've tried this the last few nights, and I've had a blast. I've had a really good time. I've been paired up with 2 other people or 1 other person, and we're talking back and forth, and we're going through these different ships. We're boarding these alien ships or the pirate ships or robots. There's basically 3 different enemy types that you deal with, and there's kind of like 3 different environments that come along with those enemies, although the game is procedurally generated, so the way that the ships look will be laid out differently. Things will look differently every time. There's all kinds of different guns you can have access to. And it's just a fun time, man. I've had a really good time in this game, and it's the camaraderie really with the other people. I've been blessed. I know there is talk that there have been some griefers that are like kind of ruining this game for a lot of people. I've gotten really lucky. The last 3 nights that I've played this game, I've been paired up with very friendly people that were helpful and courteous and just good-natured, fun-loving gamers that are looking to meet other gamers and have fun, and just that good camaraderie that you feel. And that's really what I've had with From Other Suns. I've had a blast, and I've really been into this, and I've been playing it every single night for the last 3 nights now. And it really does have this kind of Star Trek thing. One kind of interesting thing that I have noticed, though, is I've gotten into a number of these games where I just do quick join, and I just join whatever game is going on, and I just kind of go with the flow of it, right? But usually there's a guy in there that kind of takes on the boss role, and he kind of like starts ordering everybody else around, and he's like, okay, I want you to do this. You're going to stand over there. You're going to stand over there. And I just kind of noticed that it seems in these games that I've been getting into that one guy kind of goes into boss mode and kind of becomes the captain and basically takes over, which is fine. I mean, that's good. And, but it's a good camaraderie. It's a good feel. So I'm really liking From Other Suns. So I just wanted to bring that up again. Still really early on in that game and still have barely scratched the surface of that game, but I'm definitely enjoying it a lot more. And it is truly a very underrated game. The other thing I wanted to mention real quick before I bounce out of here is Ultra Wings on PlayStation VR. I've been playing more of Ultra Wings on PlayStation VR. I wanted to get into it and check out the Pro patch. I'll be totally honest, though, and say that I did not notice much of a visual difference between pre-Pro patch and now with the Pro patch. Don't notice much of a difference, but I'm still having an absolute blast playing this game. It just works really well on the PlayStation VR. There's a lot of content that is built into this game. This is a $20 game. You can pick this up for $19.99, and it has a lot of stuff in it, a lot of content. It is very much Pilot Wings. It's a relatively relaxing kind of game. You're learning how to fly your plane. You're learning how to land your plane, bank your plane, fly through various rings, perform these little stunts that you have to do. There's races. You can go on free flight. There's lots of little things that you can do in the game, and it just has a really good feel. There's a lot of content here, and I've barely scratched the surface of it, and I'm really having a great time. It's a great game. Ultra Wings is highly underrated if you're looking for some Pilot Wing style action, but also it does have sim. It's very sim-like as well. It has a sim mode and an arcade mode. There's lots of different motion sickness settings that you can go into to kind of help alleviate motion sickness. I actually have all the stuff turned off, and I don't really feel much motion sickness, but I'm pretty good with my VRC legs anyway. So haven't had a lot of problem with that. But Ultra Wings is definitely a relatively underrated game for PSVR. So if you're a PSVR owner, you might want to take a look at Ultra Wings. Obviously, it's available for Oculus Rift and for HTC Vive as well. I have not played either of those versions, but I got to imagine they're both pretty good as well. So you might want to try those out. Anyway, guys, that's going to go ahead and wrap it up. This is episode 74 of the VR Game Rankings Daily Vlog for Thursday, January 11th. And I, of course, will see everybody tomorrow on Friday. Have a wonderful Thursday. See you guys tomorrow. Later.